This week on the Deep Leadership Podcast.
They got caught up in it. So this could happen to anyone. So competitors are out there looking at technology, looking to see how they could get competitive advantage. And if you're not kind of at that forefront, you could get left behind.
Explain to the audience what do you mean by the term digital transformation?
So let me just start with transformation. So a transformation is a profound change in how a business operates or how they deliver value for their customers. And when I say profound, it spans people, process, and technology. So they're usually large efforts spanning multiple work streams, multiple years, and a significant investment in money and resources. Yeah, that's it's an important topic. And so the digital part, sorry, is transforming through the use of advanced technology. So automation, AI, and there's a million other digital technologies that are changing how business models are set up and how organizations engage their customers. So it's an important topic, especially with the speed of technology changes these days.
So it makes sense. So it's transformation. It's a major business transformation, but it's including technology of some type,
It's driven by technology. That's right.
driven by
And,
technology.
and I'll say there's my book, and we'll get into it, addresses other types of transformations. So you could be doing a large scale technology transformation or expanding into different markets or products. So or even cultural transformation. So my book kind of solves all of them. Just technology transformation and digital seem like the most pressing at this in this era.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's like a big issue. You just mentioned AI and how AI integrates into our businesses. Now I run a manufacturing company, right? How does
Yeah,
AI going to affect me? I don't know. But I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about how it can, and certainly it's become a part of my life now. I'm using
for sure.
AI. I use AI to help generate, I do videos from this podcast that come and I use AI to help me find like the key moments in podcasts and things. So I'm using
Oh,
it
for
today,
sure.
but I'm yet to figure out how it's going to affect me in my business, but I know it will.
Everyone's probably using ChatGPT to write emails or whatever, and it's a very powerful tool. I think we're just scratching the surface for what it can mean for companies.
Yeah.
So there's a concept, and since you're a manufacturer, maybe you heard of it. It's called digital twin. But digital twin is a virtual representation of your physical environment. And you
Mm,
create that so that in your physical environment, there's all these data signals. You may have IoT or external things like weather and traffic patterns or system data, et cetera. You need to take all these signals with the digital twin and feed and give it consistent business context. But then machine learning can analyze that data and tell you where there's maybe risks that haven't manifested that you need to address, or there's issues that you could address before impact happens to the clients, or there's waste and inefficiency that you need to see from a business perspective. So I think we're just scratching the surface. I think there's a lot of potential coming for those that embrace it and really follow this path.
yeah, I definitely see that. And I definitely see where it could be a huge, because it'll see things, we're going to talk a little bit about Six Sigma too. But one of the things about Six Sigma, it helps you see things that you can't see, helps you to
Exactly.
see interactions between two variables where the human mind can't quite do that calculation. So it's nice to
Absolutely.
get those things happening. So this is
Absolutely.
great. So, I mean, I've been involved with manufacturing and business for over 30 years, and I've seen a lot of programs fail, right? So why do you think so many like digital transformation or just transformation or operational excellence programs, why do so many tend to fail?
Yeah, and let me just put a little bit more framing around that, John. So 70% fail, and the global spend for transformation programs is expected to reach $3.4 trillion dollars in the next couple of years.
Wow.
So it's a massive risk for organizations in terms of lost investment, frustrated stakeholders, lost customers, and actually could be fatal to the business if they lose ground to competitors. No framework exists today that drives this holistically. So what causes it? I think it's organizational complexity. So, our organizations have a lot of different disciplines. So business, technology, risk, vendors, et cetera. And everyone comes with their own perceptions and their own language, which makes communicating around what the change is and everyone's responsibility for driving that change a little. It's time consuming and expensive to get everyone on the same page. So the result is chaos. And someone driving and talks. And a transformation leader that's driving this almost needs superhuman capabilities to keep everyone on the same page and marching towards what could be an ambitious transformation agenda.
Yeah, no, that makes a sense. And I think the leader's role is really key. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Um, so just in terms of, well, I guess we can talk about it right now. So there's a leadership side, and so what are, from a leader standpoint or just overall program standpoint, what are some keys to transformation success?
Well, the leader's got to be responsible for charting the vision. So
Mm.
how do they want to change their business model? How do they want to change their customer interactions or anything else with the application of technology? So that's first and foremost is what is the vision, and then defining the change narrative so everyone understands why this is important, and most importantly, what their role is in it. In driving it. And then they've also got to set the culture of for making sure. And I wrote an article about this, but I think the new trend in in the digital age is getting to different ways to innovation. There's two different ways. One is open innovation, where you're asking people outside of your company to innovate and come up with ideas. Maybe this is open source, et cetera. There's also democratized innovation. So in that model, in the current model, most innovation is done top-down hierarchically or by centralized R&D departments. But in the new model, you want to unlock everyone's entrepreneurial spirit and give them the tools to understand the data and the big picture, and then reward them for trying new ideas and reward them for accomplishing new things. So I think there's a lot leaders can do culturally, not only setting the vision, structuring the program, but setting the culture to make sure that everyone knows their accountability and that they could play a role in transforming the organization.
I think you hit on a really key point there, because I think we tend to, especially in big companies, you mentioned organizations are complex. We tend to pigeonhole like processes in certain departments. Well, R&D is going to do all the product development, right? And then quality is going to take care of the quality, and we've got
Yeah.
manufacturing is going to deliver on time. But really, I think that what you said was to unlock sometimes creativity, innovation is to get everybody involved. And I think of a story. We were about 15 years ago, we were trying to we ran into a new material that we'd never run into before, and our engineers were trying to figure out how we could use it in a product to be able to
Yep.
be to be more effective. And I remember somebody in marketing who had zero engineering experience, and he just looked at it and he said, I bet that would really look good, work really well in a 600-volt metering CT, where we have this problem with trying to get lower amperages that the customer is always complaining about.
Yeah.
And the engineers went, oh yeah, I think that might work. He said, can we try it? And we did it. We tried it. So it was some guy without an engineering degree. He just sort of had this, like, I know what the customers are complaining about or they're concerned about. This might actually work to help resolve an
Right.
issue. And then suddenly
Right.
you had a new product. And then here we are 15 years later, and that product is still like, it's the majority product being used in the market. And it came up with just a crazy idea from a marketing person. So I think on letting your people contribute, I think you can get crazy ideas that might just work.
And there's another trend. So with AI coming up, there's AI is going to start to replace repetitive and mundane tasks, which is going to force people into more critical thinking and
Yeah.
cognitive skills. But that should be an opportunity for organizations to rebuild their workforce to be high performing. And that is exactly what you said, John, is we need to recognize that everyone has expertise, everyone has great ideas, but we've just got to, from a leadership perspective, we've got to unlock the culture to make sure that they know that they can contribute and they could create something great. And that could be at a product level, a process level, anything that just makes your organization better.
Yeah. And I think too, we have to have as leaders an open mind to say, okay, I didn't think of it that way, but let's
Okay.
see. What do and then just getting a chance where that idea might get some wings and explore, maybe do a prototype, see if it works. And that's what we
For
did. We did a
sure.
prototype. We gave this crazy idea a little bit of air, and it flew, and
Yeah.
we were like, wow, this is crazy. This and it changed an industry. So my point is that I think you're right. I think
Yeah.
the leader provides the environment where the ideas get out, but also gives it a
Yeah.
little bit of support. Yeah, to
For
see it
sure.
happen.
And
Yeah,
understand, like most ideas will fail, but that's
yeah,
okay,
yeah, yeah.
because the greatest lessons we learn are from failure. So it's more about rewarding initiative and making sure that people understand that it's okay.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. So in the book, you've got some terminology that I'm not that familiar with, and I bet a lot
Yeah.
of our listeners are not. So you talk about the process inventory framework. Now that's new.
Yep.
Tell us what that is and how that can add value and kind of help organizations sort of do these transformations more successfully.
Yeah, so I talked before about the reasons for failure. The solution to that is getting the organization into alignment. And in alignment, there's every resource, every person and organization is working efficiently towards the vision and the mission of not only the organization but the transformation. And there's two parts of it. There's vertical alignment, so that's getting strategies, goals, knowledge, and activities from the C-suite all the way down to the lower level staff aligned, so everyone knows their role and how they contribute. And then there's horizontal alignment. So that's effective collaboration across diverse teams, business, technology, risk, you name it. So how do you get there? Well, you need a common language. So a common language would remove ambiguity, would provide precision and impacts and communication and collaboration. So to create a common language, it really must meet three criteria. It needs to be business oriented, because when you're driving a transformation program, you've got to keep focus on what does it mean for the business and the value that we're creating for our customers. It's got to facilitate cross-functional connectivity, so getting teams together of different perspectives so that they could work in a focused way. And then it's got to cover multiple levels of granularity. So from high level, so it's got to be useful for senior leadership at their level and lower level staff and their level of detail and granularity. So that's where process inventory comes in. It is a process inventory is really inventorying every process that you do as an organization. And how you get that is you have to anchor to something that's complete, and that's the organizational hierarchy. So essentially, you start at the top of the organizational hierarchy, and you just ask people, "What do you do?" And you keep walking that down until you get to a process level. Well, what you're creating is a taxonomy, but that taxonomy describes everything your business does, and it gives very discrete ownership from a process perspective of who owns what. And then there's a data element as well. So there's in a lot of organizations, there's operational data locked in unconnected and siloed data stores. So you got your application repository, you got your risk repository, you got your HR platforms that know about your people and your organizational structure, you got your vendor platforms. But there's no way to do analysis across these because these data structures are unconnected. But in the book, I talk about there's a tool, but you create this process inventory, a taxonomy really, that goes from top to lower level. And then you migrate data from these different operational repositories. And then you take data elements from each of the repositories and match it up to what process it supports. Now you create this comprehensive repository that has all operating information. So you get to know what processes and who owns them and what resources are part of those processes. It becomes a very powerful tool for not only getting that common language, removing ambiguity, but being precise in impacts when you're driving a large transformational change, so that you could deliver on time, in budget, and per the expectations of the program.
What it sounds like, it's interesting because you asked, any company, there's not one person that understands the entire company, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Everybody sort of understands their world, even if you're in the senior management, like, and I've been in senior vice president roles whenever, and I had multiple plants working for me, and I think I knew mostly how it operated, but the day to
Yep.
day and the systems and how they talk to each other and
That's right.
where the data is kept, there's no one person that has all that that down. And so I like the idea of this framework where, again, it's a taxonomy where everything is sort of at least laid out and mapped. So at least now, okay, where is all this coming from?
That's right.
And that's a big step forward, because I think a lot of companies have no idea. I mean, even my company, which is small, we have multiple different systems that don't talk to each other and multiple different processes. And I think even developing this in my small company would take some effort,
Yeah.
to put it all together, because there's so
Yeah.
much, there's so much information that passes through multiple different systems and people.
That's right. And I always say, and I wrote this in the book too, that you have a choice. So you're going to pay for complexity. So you can pay up front and organize the information so that you have clarity around everything, or you could pay on the back end. Right. When you have a problem and you're spinning up teams to do root cause analysis, or you're spending a lot of money to do a fairly simple project because people just don't know how things work. And that's where this framework becomes super important. So if you think about everything that you need to do in a transformation, from defining the strategy, and so we'll pick on strategy for a little bit. So a leader needs to come up with, here's the strategy of how we're going to use technology and how it's going to change our business model and our customer interaction model. Well, now you have the teams on the lower end, like, okay, but I don't know what that means to me. But if you have all your processes laid out, you could now take that strategy and say, and ultimately you could resolve strategy down to, what new processes do I need? Or what existing processes am I changing or impacting? So now you could draw a straight line to, okay, this process needs to change, this process needs to change, this one's getting eliminated, I need this new one. So now, because each of those have owners and each of those are tied to resources, I could be very specific and say, hey, Bob, you need to change your process to do X, Y, and Z. It removes all the ambiguity and it makes change happen much faster. But there's also other use cases I write about. So operational excellence. So that's the understanding what resources you use to operate your business and eliminating inefficiencies and waste, kind of in the Lean Six Sigma model. There's risk management. So understanding what processes you execute as a business, doing assessment to say what of those processes incur risk that is unacceptable to me, and then what mitigating controls do I need to put into that. There's the change process. So not only your strategy, but when you define a project like a project charter, and you could use this language to coordinate all of your deliverables from a change. So creating requirements in a better way, doing design in this common language, testing, introduction of change into the production environment, and then enterprise architecture, of course. So getting technology folks more granularity about what the business does enables them to define an enterprise architecture environment that more closely aligns to what the business needs, and as much and most importantly is agile. So an agile being, who knows what the external environment or technology is going to throw our way. We need to be able to, as organizations, as leaders, be able to respond to those and be able to capture opportunities and defend against competitive threats.
Yeah, and one of the things as you explain it and you talk about what it looks like, to me it seems to lend itself to data analytics better, which is
Sure.
something that is really kind of underutilized in companies. If you could, if you can, figure out what all the data in your business is saying to you at any one point in
Yes.
time, you would, you could make better decisions, right? So, and we tend to, especially with older managers, we're using our gut more than we are the data. And
Oh,
I
for
think the
sure.
future leaders are going to be using data a lot better than we are today. And if you
Oh,
don't have a way to put all that data in a framework or in a way that you can, then put it into formats to be able to be analyzed, then you're missing out on a lot of predictive type of decisions
yeah.
that you can be making, a lot of better response and better decisions, and more complex. It could, because we're dealing, as you said, we want to be more agile. So the
Yeah.
world's getting more complex. So we need our systems working for us, and we need to be able to have data analytics to help us, drive decision making.
That's absolutely right. There's been an explosion in the amount of data created in the last 10 years. And I forgot the exact figure, but it's beyond the capacity now of just humans to analyze it alone. And that's where machine learning and some of these other advanced technologies are coming in, is there's signals and there's patterns in the data that would just never become apparent to a
Mm.
human. And that's where, but those patterns are important. It'll tell us things about our customers or things about our products and how they're performing. I think organizations are all embracing this to some extent, but I think embracing it to a better extent to maximize the impact is critical.
Yeah. So how do we, I mean, this process inventory framework sounds wonderful. How do you begin to roll something like that or develop your ability to be able to do that inside the corporation? How to, I mean, and where do you start? Guess that's the question.
So I think first it's got to start with leadership.
Mm,
I think something like this you can't do from a bottom up perspective. You need a strong, like a transformation leader, someone that has a table at the C-suite, or somebody who's really influencing how the transformation is going to happen, because it really takes an organization-wide commitment to this. But beyond that, you've got to build a process capability. And I write about it, it's a process center of excellence, but you've got to have an organization that's responsible for creating this inventory, creating the associated models, governing the quality of this. And I think that's critical because if your stakeholders look at the data and they say, this doesn't really reflect who we are, then you've lost a big part of the
mm.
battle, and it'll take you a while to gain that back. And then this group also has to facilitate how this model and this information is going to change behaviors of how people work. So create a business COE, and then just start getting executed on it. That's what I've done throughout my career is stood up a lot of these centers of excellence, and then um, you know uh, define methodologies for how organizations can gain value from this.
That makes sense. I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you see like companies out there that do a really good job at this? In other words, they have their this process inventory, or at least they have a framework of which when they do make a change, they have sort of systems in place already where they know how it's going to impact various departments and various divisions. Are there some companies that sort of on the forefront of it?
There, so I've done this in my consulting practice or in my consulting career at various organizations, but I'll say a lot of organizations are embracing the concept of process. So they have process excellence teams. They use capability models, and they do process modeling. They do all the things. But I think what's missing is the tie to the holistic environment, and that's where the comprehensiveness of process inventory, I think, is missing. And so the short answer to your question, I don't think anyone's executing it to the extent that I write about in the book, unfortunately. But that's kind of my goal of why I wrote the book and why I'm standing up a consulting business. I want to educate people on there is a better way, and that you could solve all your transformation issues. But you just need to understand it and buy into it.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Well, I mean, this is a serious book.
Yeah.
Who should be reading it? I mean, is it the C-suite? Is it a transformation manager? Who should be reading this book and getting the ideas to be able to build this holistic system?
Yeah. So first and foremost, transformation leaders.
Okay.
So, like I mentioned, anybody who's responsible for designing the transformation, how it's executed, et cetera. I think getting them to see that there's a better way is critical. But then it's also their teams. So, the transformation management office. So how you leverage this to execute a project, the process center of excellence. So how do you run that capability that I mentioned, all the way down to the process modelers. But it really is the extent to which it kind of covers the organization is much bigger too, because now you're starting to define different roles like process owner, and that lives everywhere within the business, and maybe customer journey owners, and you've got a lot of people playing the role to this in this. So the book is first and foremost for transformation leaders so they could see a new vision, but I explain details on how to implement it, how to derive value from it. That's really covers every level of who needs to play a role in it.
Well, I mean, it's certainly a serious issue that we are facing. I mean, like I said, the world is getting more complex and it's
Yeah.
moving faster. And I think we're getting to where the human brain is can't handle. I
Yep.
mean, as you know, just looking back at my career in running, multiple plants, multiple businesses under, and it's like it was hard to make decisions, and you were sort of trusting certain people, and you were
Yep.
getting data from all different places, but I think we're getting to the point where we've got to run our decision making at a whole different level, and we're going to need machine learning. We're going to need AI. We're going to
Yep.
need data analytics to do that. And
Yep.
in order to do that, we've got to get a handle on what all's inside the four walls,
That's
right?
right. And to do that, you need a structured approach to how you're you need a rigorous approach for how you're going to structure the data, or else
Yeah, yeah.
it'll always be a challenge.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And again, this is for businesses of all sizes. Again, I
Yeah,
think of it just in perspective of my business, and I'm like, oh gosh, I got data everywhere. So, and they don't.
right.
In some cases, they don't talk to each other. In some cases, they do. But again, what is the data telling me? I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know.
that's right.
I trust 30 years of experience, and maybe that's not the best thing to do. So,
But you've
uh,
obviously been successful, so I wouldn't discount that.
yeah,
But
but
but the
past
machines
past
could tell.
performance, right? Past
Yeah.
performance doesn't predict future success, unfortunately.
And
So,
that's an excellent point. I write about it in the book. The Here's an example where, and I just want, and maybe this is the last message, a key message, but technology is advancing. We could choose to adopt it and transform to make better use of it, or we cannot, right? It's a decision. Some organizations, and I mentioned Fatal before, but here's a classic example. In 2007, Nokia phones had over 50% of the market. That same year, Apple came out with the iPhone with its superior touchscreen interface and superior operating system. Nokia just couldn't keep up. They didn't anticipate it. They weren't structured in a way that they could come up with a competitive product. Fast forward to 2013, 90% of their market share was lost. They ended up selling their phone business to Microsoft. Nokia is not in the phone business, so they got caught up in it. So this could happen to anyone. So competitors are out there looking at technology, looking to see how they could get competitive advantage. And if you're not kind of at that forefront, you could get left behind.
yeah, and that is a great final message to wrap up with it. You do not want to be left behind, folks.
For
If you're
sure.
listening to this and you're thinking, well, that's not going to happen to me. I don't have to worry about a digital transformation in my business. Guess what? You're thinking wrong. And you could say, well, I think AI is a waste of time, or I don't need Chat GPT in my business, or I don't need data analytics in my business. Guess what? Those that do adopt it are going to move faster, and you're going to get left behind like Nokia did. So such a solid message that
Yeah,
Michael's given us. So don't be left behind. We don't want you left behind. That's why you listen to this podcast, so you don't get left behind. So
that's
again, the
awesome.
book is called Digital Transformation Success. Michael, how can people find out more about you and this new book?
Yeah, so three ways. So go to Amazon. It's Digital Transformation Success. Buy it. There's a lot of details. I go into a lot around why this is the right framework, but not only that, but how to implement it and how to get value of it within it. It is. We mentioned the large failure rate. There is no other solution on the market that I'm aware of other than this. So it's a good thing to check out. The second is go to my LinkedIn page. So I post a lot of content, articles, podcast, YouTube videos. So if you want to learn more, go there. And then finally, go to processinventory.com. So I am starting a consulting business and an education business to train folks how to use this framework. So if you're interested in my services, contact me through that and love to have a conversation with you.
Well, fantastic. We're going to put links in the show notes for all of Michael's resource. And again, if something that we talked about today is you're thinking, holy cow, this is something I absolutely need to get a handle on. First of all, I'd recommend you get the book and follow the link that's down here. You get the book. It's super easy. But you might have a question for Michael. And again, reach out to him. We're going to have his
Yes.
contact information, LinkedIn and all that, and his website. But reach out to him. He's going to answer your question. He's going to steer you in the right direction. And he's going to help you make sense of this really important issue that's happening to all of our companies. So again, I highly recommend that you don't get left behind, that you reach out to Michael, you get this book, and you get better at what you do so that you don't get left behind. So Michael, I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing this book, sharing what you're doing, and helping us understand the importance of this.
John, thank you so much for having me. This was a great pleasure.